This morning, governments around the world are applauding the United States and Cuba after that diplomatic breakthrough. President Obama said Wednesday he will restore relations between the two countries. Those ties were cut in January 1961. Scott Pelley is in Cuba's capital, and we'll speak to him in a moment. First, Major Garrett is at the White House, where the president made that historic announcement. Major, good morning.
Good morning. President Obama said it was time to end an experiment in diplomatic and economic isolation that dates back to the Eisenhower administration, arguing closer ties will coax Cuba's communist government toward all manner of reform. Critics said the president was misinformed and naive.
We will end an outdated approach that for decades has failed to advance our interests.
The White House negotiated the release of U.S. aid worker Alan Gross.
This is great.
Unjustly jailed in Cuba for 5 years. At the same time, it worked on normalizing relations with Havana's communist government. Pope Francis set the process in motion, urging President Obama and Cuban President Raul Castro to resolve the dispute over Gross's fate and to, quote, initiate a new phase in relations. The president sealed the deal with Castro in an Oval Office phone call Tuesday. Freedom for Gross triggered the lifting of certain travel and trade restrictions. But only Congress can remove all commercial barriers between the U.S. and Cuba. Democrat Robert Menendez is the outgoing chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee.
I think it stinks. I think it's wrong. I'm deeply disappointed in the president.
Florida Republican Senator Marco Rubio, whose parents fled the Cuban Revolution, said the White House gave up too much.
This president is the single worst negotiator we have had in the White House in my lifetime, who has basically given the Cuban government everything it asked for and received no assurances of any advances in democracy and freedom in return.
Arizona Republican Jeff Flake, among others, flew Gross back to America and was rare among Republican supporters of the president.
The policy that we've had in place for the past 50 years has done more, in my view, in many's view, to keep the Castro regimes in power than anything we could have done.
Republicans who will run Congress next year have vowed to do everything in their power to block the lifting of a decades-old economic embargo with Cuba. Historically, much of U.S. policy with Cuba has run through South Florida, where anti-Castro sentiment has run high, and both parties have tried to exploit it. With President Obama's move now, U.S.-Cuba policy could be a dividing line in the race for the White House in 2016. Gail?
All right, Major, thank you.